Oh, good. Huh. Toby.
We made it.
Finally.
Yeah.
I was saying, I dropped an email earlier on. I think the last time I spoke to you was probably about 30 years ago.
Wow.
In Bradford.
Was that Queen's Hall?
I think it was St George's.
St George's, yeah. Little Angels.
Yep.
Headlining, probably. What I thought. Yeah, great.
Yeah, so
long time ago.
Early 90s, which just shows you how old we are.
We were 12 here.
I know. I'd done just got university. I was 11. So a long time going. There's one question I want to ask you before I forget. It's right at the front, and I've been wanting to ask you for absolutely ages, and it's a question that relates to both the bands.
Okay.
And it's Wayward Sons. Does the name actually hark back to a lyric from Kicking Up Dust?
It does, but I was paraphrasing that from the Kansas song because, and it all goes back to when I was first going to rock. There was a rock club in Scarborough called Victoria's Nightclub, and when I was 13, 14, I was about 6 feet tall and I had long hair. So and I had a load of mates who used to go to this club, and weirdly they used to hold a rock night on a Tuesday night. So I decided one Tuesday, I was telling my mum and dad I was going to go and stay at my mate's house, but I was in fact going into Scarborough to go to this rock club. And it was like a bit of like heart in my mouth sort of moment. And I think it's a long flight of stairs going up into this venue, which is above a supermarket. So I walked in there, and as I was walking in, I paid me £2.50 to get in. No one said anything, and I was like, I'm in, And as I was walking through the doors, Carry On My Wayward Son was playing by Kansas, and in a way, to me, it sort of lit a bonfire under me. Really, it was like here I was getting to the point where I was old. I started to feel old enough to sort of start to make my own decisions about what music I wanted to listen to, and I wanted to be in a band and all that. And somehow that song just sort of really triggered it in me. And so I always remembered that. So when I was writing Kicking Up Dust, I paraphrased that because it always represented to me that like freedom, a sense of not so much the loner, but like kind of going out into the world and seizing opportunity and pursuing your dreams. So that always stuck with me. And then when that went into to Kicking Up Dust, and then when it came to naming this band, there was absolutely no other option for me. I had to call it Wayward Sons. So it's had a. I mean, I say 14, 15. So I'm 58 this year. So it's over a 40-year, longevity in terms of what it's meant to me. So. Yeah, it's a very pivotal thing actually for me, really. Yeah.
And talking about the length of time, that's another thing I want to come back to is the fact that you started off with Little Angels. Was it Mr. Thrud?
Mr. Thrud.
Mr. Thrud was metamorphosed into Little Angels. Then you've gone through. You've got Wayward Sons, obviously, has picked up just before lockdown, and after that, has there actually ever been a point when you've not been involved with music? Because that's
no, never. No, it's been. I'm a lifer, It's a bit like, and I don't make this to sound stupid, but it's a bit like being a drug addict. You cannot get rid of it. It's a kind of, it's just, the more you're trying to walk away from it, the more it draws you back in a way. And don't get me wrong, I've had a very close relationship with music, a very private relationship with music, but some of the aspects of being in the music business I've often rubbed up against. I mean, the bands I've been in have been brilliant. I've really enjoyed it, but a lot of the business aspects of it, dealing with record companies, dealing with managers, dealing with promoters, I've never been particularly great at that, or I've never really felt part of that scene and that system. I've always been driven by the music. I've always been driven by the audience, and I think that's what's held me instead. Really, is that my principal goal is to create music that the audience can enjoy and they can find something in that. Because I recognised quite early on that great musicians and great songwriters, because what I wanted to be was a songwriter. I wasn't interested particularly being in a virtuoso musician, and I'm not, I was interested in writing stories and talking about the life that I was living, because I knew full well that my audience were living that life too. And I was one of those kids that queued up in the rain to buy the new Dio album or whatever. I knew what it felt like to be a fan. And what I wanted as a fan was to have a sense of belonging to a I don't know, a group, belonging to a gang, And so those are the bands I gravitated towards. So when I started getting into music, that was always at the forefront of my mind. What I wanted was to create stuff that people could react to, they could recognise it, they could somehow, it meant something to them. And they responded because of that. And that's been my driving force. And I think it's kind of really helped me from an audience point of view, but I think from a business point of view, sometimes it hasn't. But I'm far more interested in the audience than I am in the business.
So the way that things are running now, obviously Little Angels was under the huge record company kind of thing. Are you managing Wayward Sons in a different fashion to that?
Pretty much. I mean, we have help. I mean, I've got Adam Parsons, who's a good mate of mine. He sort of manages the band for us. He's a very big rock and roll manager. But by and large, I'm pretty self-sufficient. I mean, I've been in this game long enough to know what I want, and but I'm also not stupid enough to realise I can do it all on my own. I've got a brilliant agent, Claire McLeod at William Morris. Like I say, Adam's brilliant. The guys in the band are brilliant. They've all been through the mill a bit themselves. I mean, Phil was Tokyo Dragons, and he's done a number of things. He's in a couple of other bands as well. Nick, Chrome Molly from back in the day, and I've known Nick for 40 odd years. Getting on. So I think we're all wily foxes. We know what's going on. And we've tried to maintain it like that, and we stick together.
So you, as well as the two bands, you also do your own stuff as well.
Yeah.
So you've got the Kitchen Busker.
I've got that, and I've got my Lookout solo album that I'm doing at the moment, which is great. And I mean, I think you've got to have a few hats, in the ring. These days you can't just survive on one thing. It was a different thing when Little Angels were signed to a major label. It's an entirely different kettle of fish. So it's very much a kind of cottage industry.
Yeah. It's interesting to think that the Little Angels was really. It was big and it's quick and it was over far too fast for my liking. For many other people's, and it exploded and it finished in a blaze of glory with the gig at the Royal Albert Hall.
It certainly did.
And then the comeback tour in early 20s as
2012.
well. 2012. So you had the ABC, which is no longer with us. But you keep the music alive, re-recording some versions. Are you finding going back and re-recording them? Are there bits where you're thinking, I could have done this different, or I wish I could have done this different, or I need to do this different? Are you reinventing this stuff for any particular reason, or is it just?
It's a really interesting question. I have I know those songs so intimately, and whenever I sing those songs, if I do it acoustically or I go and play it we do Young Gods in the set at the moment, with Wayward Sons. It's like every time I play those songs, it feels like it's the first time I'm ever playing them. I know it's bizarre, but that's because they're so innately in me. They're so part of my sort of musical DNA that. It's like they rebirth themselves every time. I never get bored of them. Yeah. But this recent acoustic stuff I've been doing, that was just kind of. I'd spent a lot of time through lockdown playing acoustic songs. I did my Kitchen Buskers, which I did every week right through all of those lockdowns. And what that did which was great, was it forced me to re-examine almost like a 35-year career of being a songwriter. And some of those songs I hadn't listened to the Little Angel stuff for years. So I put on the albums. I'm like, I'd forgotten about this song, but the weird thing is, and I think probably most songwriters will say this, when you hear a song that you've written and you've recorded and you hadn't heard it for a long time, you can put yourself right back in the moment when you did write it. Wow. And it's a kind of weird, it's like opening a door on a dusty cupboard, you sort of go, oh God, I remember that spoon, that plate. It's a kind of weird, you have a weird experience with it, but that's the joy of it. Especially when it's kind of autobiographical. A lot of my stuff is. It's experiences that I've gone through, and I put them into poetic form. Not always completely the truth, but it's a springboard. So the relationship with the music is that's the bit I'm most interested in. It's in a way, when I peg it and I'm no longer here, what I'm interested in is leaving the work behind intact, and it has. A real relevance, and it has relevance to people that cared about it, and the body of work, when examined, can be thought of as authentic. Some people might not like my music, but I'm not really bothered about that, because it's not better or worse, it's just different, if you know what I mean. That's the way I feel about it. Yeah,
fun enough, is the way you're saying that, is effectively you write music for yourself, don't you?
Yeah, you do. Well, every artist has to. Yeah. Every filmmaker has to make a film for themselves. Every author has to write for themselves. It's an incredibly selfish thing. But what you do with that is, when it is that selfish and it's that personal, what you're really doing is you're attaching yourself to the whole of humanity. Because I'm not different to anybody else. I'm just able to illustrate it in this form. So what you're hoping you're doing is you're hoping that somebody somewhere in that dark room in the back of the Cathouse is getting something out of that, and is remembering something. They're coming here tonight because somehow this music has inspired them to be here, and that to me is a huge privilege, actually. So my job as a songwriter is to make sure that work isn't frivolous. It has relatable reasons to be alive as a piece of work.
Yep.
You know, and the art is intact and it's authentic, and that's all I really care about. I'm not interested in fame. I don't even know what a rock star is. I would never call myself that. The press, media invented the word rock star. Musicians didn't.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah. Talking about material, the Wayward Sons, you got 3 albums and an EP. Yeah. So the last release was 3 years ago.
A long time ago. Yeah.
Are we expecting anything new from you guys?
It's hard to know at the moment. We're in a bit of a transitional period because the music industry, the kind of the music industry I'm involved with, which is very much do it yourself, is struggling. Let's be honest. It's difficult to get records made. If you make a great record, it's very hard to get it released. I mean, we've been working with Frontiers Music and they've been great to us, don't get me wrong, but they are a small label. It's very hard to get your head above the parapet, and there are only so many bands that Earache will sign, if you know what I mean, and they're about the only label that are doing any really serious work in the UK. Right. Do you know what I mean? I mean, there are labels in Europe. There is Ear Music. There's various other labels, but they're struggling too. It's a hard slog at the moment. So my intention is, because here's the thing, to write and make a record is a year of my life. Intense. I mean, intense. I write a lot. Every record that we've made with Wayward Sons, I've got 50 or 60 songs. And we're having to sift through all of that material to get to a point where we know which 10 or 12 we want to use. But those 50 songs take a long time to come up with, and you have to have 50 to be able to find the diamonds, Yep. So it's a long process and it's a lot of work, and what I don't want to go through ever again is that process without it having some kind of result at the end of it. Because and that's a struggle. That is a struggle. So if we do it again, if we make another record, I need to find the right way of doing that, so we can get. There's a bigger launch pad for it. There's a bigger, wider word out there. I mean, the weird thing for me is, I've been in a band that had a #1 album. Back when you had to sell 60,000 records to get a #1 record in a weekend, which is what we did. We sold a lot of records, and so my experience for that has informed me for the rest of my musical career, and it's based on a kind of real. It's based on making sure that the music is absolutely solid and the team around you, everyone's on the same page, and it's forcing the whole thing forward. But of course, with a major label, that's easy because they've got all the money and blah blah blah.
Good.
But of course, major labels aren't signing rock bands with guitars anymore. So do you know what I mean? It's a tough game out there at the moment. Yeah.
So are you finding again, like a lot of bands these days, producing your own albums in terms of physical media? One of the benefits you guys got is when you try to sell an album on vinyl, which is in the old days, vinyl is this big thing that young people seem to like now. So cassettes they've vanished, but with vinyl, the benefit you've always had was the artwork. You've got this big 12-inch or a big gatefold. All your albums have come a big gatefold with wonderful artwork. Could you name the artist for me?
He's called. Oh God, what is his name? You've asked me now.
I can't remember. I'll tell you in a minute. I'll remember it in a moment. Brilliant. I mean, we've worked very hard on that stuff because my personal love of album art was that, just like you're talking about, that you poured over it, you looked at the detail, everything had a reason to be there. It was all part of the connection, Stuart Dilley. Sorry, Stuart, if you're watching this. I think it's a bit of an old age thing, but yeah. So I think album art's very important to me, and it was the sleeves that we made we created with Stuart for Wayward were based on my love of comics, really. I mean, I grew up collecting DC and Marvel comics, but also a lot of the American sort of the pulp comics, the sort of Amazing Tales and things like that. And I just wanted to do something like that because I've always loved the Iron Maiden sleeves, for instance. It's a very much a kind of, and of course the Deadwood character, we wanted to create something similar, and it did work really well. It's worked great for us, So yes, I think that stuff's important.
And of course, shifting physical media now for bands that's where some of the money is. Again, just to tell you folks, if you're turning up for the gig or any of the gigs on tour, buy their T-shirts and stuff, because we speak to so many bands nowadays. That's where the money is. Spotify, 2 million listens, £2.50 in the bank.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
if you could sell 2.5 million singles, you'd be rolling in it.
Oh, absolutely. Exactly.
But yeah, so in terms of like buying the physical merch, you've got the benefit of like you get to see the artwork rather than this little postage stamp size thing on your phone,
That's it.
and you are supporting the bands as well. So not too sure what's coming up next in terms of songwriting. You've got your new solo album out there.
Yeah, I do the solo record, which which is important to me. I kind of gathered a load of songs, and that's the process of being a songwriter. You never stop really writing. You're always coming up with a riff or an idea. So I sort of like thought, well, I just need to do something for myself, really, just to kind of almost like empty the cupboard, really. So I'm doing 3 mini albums. It's under the banner of this called Lookout, and it's 3 mini records, and it's 20 songs. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm on the we released the first one, and I'm in the middle of recording middle of finishing the second one. Third, and that's probably going to come sometime June, and I think the third one will come probably Christmas time, something like that.
Yeah, and all the details for that are on your website and
all that,
social media,
yeah.
which you're very active on, I have to say.
I know, yeah. I mean, it's a kind of it's a bit of a cross to bear, isn't it? Really, like social media. I sort of have a love. I mean, like we all do, probably have a bit of a love-hate relationship with it. But
Hate it, yeah.
but the reality is the audience is there, and and I just think as long as you engage people correctly. I don't like keyboard warriors. I try not to be one myself. But inevitably, because I'm quite political as well, I have a view of the world, and I want to talk about it. You inevitably get caught up in the net of it all, and it's hard to sort of extricate yourself from it sometimes. But I don't care about that. I think at the end of the day, it's discourse, it's conversation. You've got to, and that's what music's about. It's about communication ultimately. At the end of the day,
Yeah. Well, tonight's communication is going to be from Wayward Sons. Headlining tonight, just back at 9 o'clock, I think, till quarter past 10. We're looking forward to it. It'll be my second time seeing you. How many times have you seen Ross?
A dozen times, might be more.
Good lad.
Yeah, and the first time for Alyssa. So.
Well, I hope you enjoy it. It's always a pleasure.
Very much looking forward to it, and it's a cracking venue, as I'm sure you're aware as well.
Yeah, played here many times. Yeah.
So it's been a pleasure to finally catch up with you and have a good chat.
Thank you. Thanks for watching.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers.